F123 is going to revolutionize the F1 ecosystem. Or will it? Find out right here, right now. Greetings Rommies, and welcome to Vrom Vrom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing and to our regular review of sims, racing games and whatever could interest you. Welcome to the channel, thanks for stopping by. My name is Ike and I will be your host for this video. F123 is the newest game from the EA Codemasters partnership, and TLDR, if you didn't like it before, you're not going to like it now. And if you liked it before but have non-mainstream hardware, well, you may not have a choice as to whether you play it or not. Here's Serta with the rundown of his technical issues, which means you have my impression rather than his.
Hey, Serta here. Eike is right. Even if I have a system many of you may have or at least recognize with CSL V3 pedals, a cube controls rim in front of a Simucube sport base, F123 did not want to recognize any turn of the wheel. It recognized my pedals and pressing them, it recognized the gear changes on the rim, but the Simucube 2 did, for all intent and purposes, not exist. I spent most of the 2 hours before I refunded the game trying to convince F123 to acknowledge my base. Well, that and having to listen to the insufferably mediocre music, which was in parts even as bad as will.i.am's F1 song. To add insult to injury, this is the first F1 game that is not able to do so, as 2019, 2020 and 2021 recognize it with no issues. I skipped 2022, so I can't tell you. And of course, all the sims out there recognize it. So if you have a Simucube, you may want to give this game a pass. Now, back to Eike.
Sorry to hear about your problems, Serta. Thankfully, I don't have such a high-end system, so a lack of some of the issues, although the process was still not simple. Starting up, you're greeted with the usual online terms of service and EULAs, which appear before you can access anything, so getting it out of the way, great. But it's also set to generic pop backing music at full volume. €5 goes to the first person who can read that and process what is being read while that music goes off. Launching the game muted is advised. The terms of service screen also spawns the next frankly insulting feature of F123, and that is no mouse support. None. For a game that considers itself worthy of being an esport, no mouse support belies an attitude that will be a through line of this review, ignoring the PC audience entirely. But we know this is nothing new for the F1 games. Still, in this time and age, you'd think that they could afford like 30 minutes it would take for a developer to add the code for mouse support. The bar is set quite low already. Let's see if we can improve. One thing that was noteworthy, as someone who has colorblind and otherwise abled friends, is seeing accessibility options appearing before the game even begins. This is excellent. More of this please, developers. Gamers shouldn't need to dig through difficult to read menus to be able to make the game work for them, something we'll come back to in a moment. The main menu waits for you to connect to EA servers for some reason, making an already long time before play on the first startup even longer. And then once you get into the menu, turning the awful backing music is in options setting audio settings. Why doesn't options just go straight into settings? Because credits, delete local save data and autosave are in the parent folder. This spawns more questions than it answers. Why those options? Why not have those be in addition to the other settings? And if you're wondering why this is so negative, it's because this is supposed to be a console-oriented game. Pick up and play. I had to sit through 3, skippable to be fair, intros, a loading connection screen, and had to do it without the freedom a simple cursor would fix. This UI has the same issues as the new rFactor 2 UI in that it looks pretty, but takes too long to do anything. For the uninitiated then, to get into an arcade race, as the millennials would call it, you start the game, put the kettle on. Press a button on your wheel or keyboard to get into the main menu, navigate to F1 World, wait for the very kind gentleman to tell you how F1 World works, your tea is ready by the way, And finally, you can do an arcade race. However, the game very much wants you to complete the Welcome to F1 World series, a brief series where you're introduced to upgrades, team members, Bitcoin, we'll get to that too, and other superfluous things that shows EA's grubby hands all over this once venerated series. Once you've found the Grand Prix mode, or arcade for us aging folk, pick your track, car and driver and take to the track. There are some basic setups pre-made, from low downforce to high, with speed doing the opposite, and as always in these F1 games you can load a setup from the Steam Workshop, if you're on PC that is. Or you can make your own. From dampers to downforce, the whole car is your plaything, to make it dance how you like it. And I'll level the same thing that I leveled at Assetto Corsa all those years ago, 1 to 20 isn't a scale. Not for wing, not for spring rates. They do manage to spit out something useful in the diff and tyre pressure windows, but at this point it should be fairly simple. Okay, deep breath, you're in the car now, EA can't hurt you. Viewers note, I'm a real sim race boy, so I turned all the aids off before I even turned a wheel. First attempt was at the brand new, so purely imaginary at this point, Las Vegas circuit at night. Not the graphics engine's strongest suit, but fully cranked it was smooth enough, and my overlay said 90 FPS on a now well used GTX 1080 Ti. Coming from ACC and rFactor 2, a breath of fresh air, and a critically important tick in the box if EA/Codeys want this to have the wide appeal they're expecting. So, lining up on the start grid, hold the clutch, check, match the optimal revs, check, no, wait, it's going high, no, it's low, what do you want from me? 1 beep, 2 beeps, 3, 4, 5, and the lights go out without a sound? At least other sims are consistent and either give you all the countdown audio or none. So on the back foot, I bleed the clutch out, aiming for that sweet spot, and nothing happens. A little further and it engages. It's not a clutch, it's a switch. Could genuinely have come straight out of Dirt Rally 2. Now we're rolling, and onto the driving physics. I'll tell you what it isn't, it's definitely not Madness Engine pre-AMS2 working their magic. That's the best I can say. It's not Assetto Corsa, it's not rFactor 2. You can feel there's maths going on behind there, but like the C-grade student F123 there's a couple of mistakes in the calculations which make for what will make excellent F123 crash compilation videos in the next few months. The AI too, for those who are into that, remain as dim-witted as ever, and qualifying pace is light years ahead of what the AI race can muster. At strength 40, I could barely keep up, scoring a lucky drive out of the final corner at Bahrain to seal the pole, but there's hundreds in it, coming from true sims like ACC or RF2, where the spread can be as much as a second. That's very little time for an approachable simcade to slot your car into the field. Definitely a niche you could find if it wasn't for the gulf in performance between AI in qualifying and AI in the race. Spending 5 hours with this released version of F123 was disappointing, honestly. The graphics are serviceable, but not great. The force feedback is fine, but not great. There was a consistent flat spot noise, which I can only assume was triggered by spinning the rear wheels at the start that wouldn't go away, but also wasn't reflected in the force feedback. Slamming the front brakes confirmed that while the car will tell you audibly that there are flat spots, it won't be until your tyres are truly at the end of their life that you'll notice by feel where the understeer will breathe the true signal. Oh, and about the technical issues that I had. I run a Logitech G29, about as basic as they come, but F123 seemed to think that I wanted the wheel to be set at 900 degrees rather than the 360 simulated in-game. I haven't had a game fail to auto-adjust my wheel settings since I first started sim racing. I've had poorly built mods communicate an incorrect rotation to the game and had to fettle to make it function, but this is the first time I've had to leave a game, go into Logitech gaming software, manually change my rotation to match what I see in-game, and then go back into the sim. By this point, you'd think a company as mature as Codemasters would be able to at least accommodate the most generic of wheelbases. As to the rest of the game, the co-op career remains, all the usual creature comforts you've come to expect from the F1 games are all here, the new tracks and liveries including the new Mercedes are all here. The new tracks, while definitely not laser scanned, are serviceable. Bitcoin is terrible, you shouldn't buy into it. You should not engage with it, but EA clearly think it's going to be a hit as it's listed above the premium version of the game on the storefront. I didn't get as far as looking into what it can buy, but as far as I can see, it's going to be funding their premium podium pass as well as unique cosmetic items. They really are pushing this as far as they can. That can also be said for most of the choices made in the menus. Jumping in and driving is now second place to their matchmaking servers. Time trial is out of sight on the F1 World menu. There is clearly a drive here to push people into the online ecosystem. Same with the options screen. There's clearly been pushback over certain options that were too hard to find. So, as a response, getting to the game options now requires 2 button presses instead of once. If you'd like to support our channel, which we sure wish you would, and can afford it, you can do so by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/romrom. Among other perks, becoming a patron will fix your name for posterity like this, but you'll also get to know what we plan and what we're doing, and will be able to take part in our decisions. So a big thank you to our patrons. If you're feeling friendly, please consider subscribing. In conclusion then, F1 23 is an improvement on its previous iterations in driving physics, but still not to the level of the more seriously received simulators. And if you're on PC, you'll have more fun and a better driving experience with any of the existing mods in Assetto Corsa or R-Factor 2, or especially the open wheelers in Automobilista 2. It really won't be long until both new American tracks are either ported or developed from scratch for those sims either. With driving aids on, the game is a dry experience, making you feel faster than you are, and with them off, you have a little more risk of spinning, but it's still far more binary and feels slower than the previously mentioned mods. Outgoing suggestion then, wait for October, when the game will no doubt be reduced to about £10, €15 USD, and then they will have solved most of the bugs as well. Until then, you can safely ignore F1 23 for the time being.